For the next 3 days, I'm trying something a little different on the YouTube channel. I went back and found some pictures from a trip that we had back in 2016, where we started off in Arizona, then we drove through New Mexico and headed all the way down to western Texas before we finished up our trip. And I want to share those pictures with you, share a little bit of the history of my old stomping grounds out in the US Southwest, and maybe just share more than just theme park content in general. I think that's important. I want to branch out a little bit this year, and going back through these old pictures was really fun. So this is going to start with a visit to Petrified Forest National Park in Holbrook, Arizona, and the video is going to end in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so I hope you enjoy it. Petrified Forest National Park was added to the national park system in 1962 by President Kennedy and sits just outside of Holbrook, Arizona, with Interstate 40 going directly through it. That's roughly a 3-hour drive from Phoenix. As we entered, this cute deer was in our way and literally caused us about a 10-minute delay. There are two entrances to the park. One is right off of I-40 and starts you in the Painted Desert section. This time we decided to start at the southern entrance, which was more accessible from Holbrook, but would also let us out at I-40, which is more convenient for our purposes. This also allowed us to start at the museum and see some fossils from the area. Going this way, we first encountered the petrified forest that gives the park its name. Simply put, petrified wood is a fossil of trees or other vegetation, where over millions of years in this case, the wood decays and is replaced with surrounding minerals. It really does make for some beautiful patterns. Before you enter Petrified Forest National Park, there are a number of stores selling petrified wood. So many people trafficked in the selling of these beautiful items that strict rules were put in place to forbid guests from taking it from the park. Of course, when this prohibition was announced, it caused a rush on the valuable items. As you leave the petrified forest, you start to see signs of the Painted Desert. Seeing the different layers of coloration on these hills is breathtaking in person. There are times where it really feels like you're on another planet. We took a hike that went about a mile into this area, which kept you away from the noise of passing cars. If it wasn't for the small markings to keep you moving in the right direction, it would feel almost like you were discovering these areas for the first time. Natural resources aren't the only things to see here. There's evidence that people lived in this part of Arizona as long as 13,000 years ago. Ancient villages complete with petroglyphs can be found right off the main road. By this point in the day, the temperatures were well into triple digits, and my car was still less than a year old, so it was nice to be able to hop out and see this history and then get right back into the ice-cold air conditioning of my brand new car. It takes the Prius a few extra seconds to reach full blast on the AC 8 years later. The Paleo-Indian people were in the area from around 13,500 to 6,000 BCE. They were hunters and gatherers because the area was much different at that time. What is now the U.S. Southwest had green grasslands and wooded river bottoms. There was more rainfall, cooler temperatures, and the Paleo-Indians were able to hunt large animals like mammoth and bison. Post-Ice Age, from about 6,000 to 500 BCE, the people in this area have been labeled archaic. The Southwest started to take on characteristics more common to the modern day. It got drier and the mammoth went extinct. While the people were still nomadic, they stayed in much smaller areas. This led to domestication of plants and animals, especially corn, which was introduced from further south. The basket makers from 500 BCE to 650 of the Common Era started some of these permanent settlements. The climate at this point had completely shifted to what we would equate with Arizona. These are people who built the slab-lined pit houses that can be found at Petrified Forest National Park. At least 47 of these houses have been found on the land. The basket makers survived on corn, squash, beans, and small game like rabbits. Some of the earliest examples of ceramics in northern Arizona have been found in this part of the park. After the basket makers, the time starts to be divided into 5 different eras of Pueblo people. From 1950 to 1300 CE, the Pueblo villages started to drastically increase in size, and they started building agate houses. These agate houses actually utilize petrified wood as a building material. Some more modern history can be found with relics of old Route 66. The interstate highway system, especially I-40, made Route 66 obsolete almost immediately. Throughout the Southwest, you can see signs of towns that just disappeared because they were focused on serving the travelers who came down Main Street on their way to California. Route 66 was Main Street in many of these towns. Now, the same amenities can be provided with a couple truck stops and fast food restaurants at any exit on 40. President Eisenhower absolutely was right to invest so much in the interstate highway system, and it's made the country so much more accessible to so many more people. But I wish there was more of an effort to preserve the way of life for some of these small towns. At Petrified Forest, you can see some of the poles that carry telephone and electrical wires along Route 66. Holbrook is about 30 minutes from Winslow, Arizona. Of course, Winslow was referenced in the Eagles song Take It Easy, which really encapsulates the nostalgic feeling of being free to hop in your car and travel Route 66. It's an intersection of Route 66 in Winslow where you can see the standing on a corner statue and a statue of Glenn Fry of the Eagles. In all actuality, the romance of Route 66 has already lasted longer than the functionality of the route itself. We close out the Petrified Forest National Park with the Painted Desert. This is beautiful, especially when it gets closer to sunset. In 2014, my best friend Matt and I made a cross-country drive. I'll probably make a video of that in the future. We went through at a much more opportune time to really see those colors pop. Getting back on I-40 West and heading towards Gallup, New Mexico, we made a quick stop in Navajo Nation, right on the border with New Mexico. I actually picked up a blanket, which my cat Lily loved for the rest of her life. She actually stole it from me because she wanted it to be folded and constantly on her cat condo. I also picked up the Baja, which you'll see me wearing a number of times in the remaining videos from the trip. If I remember correctly, the blanket was $12 and the Baja was $40. We saw some nice art and had a nice but simple dinner in Gallup that night before heading to rural New Mexico the next morning. The Wild Spirit Wolf Sanctuary is in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. Those of you who know the state know that the middle of nowhere in the land of enchantment really feels like the middle of nowhere. Our cell phones didn't work and we had to make sure we started the morning with a full tank of gas. This place is a hidden gem. You really have to make the effort to drive this out of the way, but it is so worth it. While the ability to visit and even feed these lovely animals is amazing, the fact that they are rescuing these wolves is what really makes you feel good about supporting them. If you've been following the channel for a long time, you know I'm an animal lover. When I was a kid, I had a husky in Pennsylvania. Yes, I am more of a cat person, but I have a soft spot in my heart for huskies, wolves, and coyotes. Feeding these gorgeous creatures was my personal highlight of the visit. Across the street from Wild Wolf Sanctuary, there was a trading post with a restaurant. Since this was such a remote location, we wanted to support them with a quick lunch. At the time, I wasn't yet a vegetarian, so you'll notice some of these meals actually do contain meat. We stumbled upon El Morro National Monument on our way to Albuquerque. Having done absolutely no research into the spot, I saw a sign and decided to do a quick hike. This is a unique location. After hiking to the top of the mountain, you can see for hundreds of miles in every direction. The top of the mountain makes a horseshoe shape with a huge drop in the center. There's some gigantic trees in that valley, and there are relics of past civilizations that developed a settlement at the zenith. Let's close out this video with a look at San Felipe de Neri Catholic Church in Albuquerque. This building dates back to 1793 and is the only building in Old Town that has been proven to date back to Spanish colonial days. Finally, we had a hotel reservation in Santa Fe. That meant another drive of about an hour before we could get some sleep. On the way, I got a call from my best friend, Matt. I'd mentioned our cross-country road trip from 2014 earlier in the video, and I happened to be driving past the Sandia Mountains. We took a lift up to the top of the Sandia Mountains on that trip. It was such a cool place to have in the background when Matt told me that he was going to be a father for the first time. That is why this rainbow in Santa Fe is the final picture on this video. Matt and I had stayed at the exact same hotel back in 2014, and now there was a rainbow as I finished my call with him on such an important day, and I thought that was such a cool way to end this video. So that's where we're going to leave things off today. We are going to pick things up again tomorrow in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're going to head up to Taos and see a whole lot more. You can check that out tomorrow on the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.